The stranger at the gate. The sun was sinking low across the plains, spreading a wash of gold over the ranch lands. Dust swirled in lazy ribbons as cattle drifted back toward their pens, and the sharp scent of leather and hay clung to the air. Samuel Carver stood at the porch rail of his house, arms crossed over his chest, hat tipped low, watching the land the way a soldier studies a battlefield. To him, every acre of this spread was a responsibility, a promise to the generations before him who had built it, and a safeguard for the one fragile life inside the house, the life of his little girl, Clara. The ranch was quiet now, save for the faint whinny of horses and the chatter of sparrows finding roosts. Samuel often found himself standing there in the evenings, alone with the weight of the day, the silence pressing harder than the work. He had buried his wife 3 winters ago, and though he rarely spoke of her, the ache of her absence sat in his chest like a branding iron that never cooled. It was Clara who kept him going. Just 6 years old, with her mother's eyes and her stubborn way of clinging to his hand when the nights turned stormy. She had lost her mother too young to remember fully, but not so young that her heart didn't ache for something she couldn't name. Samuel drew a breath, preparing to head inside, when movement at the far end of the drive caught his eye. A figure was stumbling along the fence line, thin and weary, a bundle clutched against her chest. For a moment he thought it might be one of the ranch hands' wives, but as she drew closer he saw that it was no one he recognized. She was young, though her face was worn by exhaustion, her dress torn at the hem and dust-stained, her shoes little more than frayed leather scraps tied with cord. Her hair, a tangled mass of brown, fell loose around her shoulders. She walked with the hesitation of someone who did not believe she belonged here. Samuel stiffened. Strangers seldom came this way, not without purpose, and most of them carried trouble in their shadow. His hand twitched toward the rifle propped against the porch rail, though he did not yet lift it. The woman stopped at the gate, clutching the bundle tighter. No, not a bundle. A satchel, worn and patched, perhaps holding everything she owned. She lifted her eyes toward the house, and even across the distance Samuel could see the raw plea in them. "Sir," she called, her voice hoarse from dust and hunger. "Please. I don't mean no harm. Just a corner to rest, a scrap to eat, and I'll be gone by morning." Samuel said nothing at first. His jaw tightened. He had heard those words before, in one shape or another, and too often they led to theft or worse. Clara's small head peeked around the door frame then, her golden hair catching the last of the sun. "Papa, who is it?" she asked, her voice curious. Samuel held up a hand to keep her inside, but it was too late. The child's wide eyes had already locked on the stranger at the gate. The woman lowered her head, ashamed under the gaze of a child. "Please," she whispered, "just a crust of bread." Samuel's instinct was to refuse. He had enough mouths to feed without taking in strays. Yet Clara, with the innocence only children possess, darted forward before he could stop her. She carried in her small hands the heel of bread from supper, still warm from the hearth. "Here," Clara said, slipping through the gate with the confidence of one who believed the world kind. She held the bread out to the woman, who dropped to her knees as though the gift were gold. "Thank you," the stranger breathed, her hands trembling as she accepted it. She tore it in half, stuffing a piece into her mouth with desperate hunger, then forced herself to slow, as if ashamed of the ferocity of her need. Samuel descended the porch steps, his boots heavy on the packed earth. He approached with caution, his tall frame casting a shadow over the woman as she knelt. "What's your name?" he asked, voice stern. She swallowed hard, the bread lodged in her throat before she forced it down. "Eliza," she said softly. "Eliza Moore. Where you from?" Her eyes flickered, unsure whether truth would buy her mercy or condemnation. "South," she said at last. "I worked in town for a time, laundry mostly. But work dried up, and I've been walking since." Samuel studied her, his gaze sharp as flint. She was no drifter by choice. That much he could see in the way she carried herself, in the soft cadence of her words. Something had broken her, sent her adrift. Still, pity was a dangerous indulgence. "You can sleep in the barn," Samuel said at last, his voice low but firm. "Hay'll be softer than the road, and I'll see you get some stew. But come sunrise, you'll be moving on." Relief washed over Eliza's face, though it was tempered by weariness. She bowed her head. "Thank you, sir. God bless you." Clara clapped her hands, delighted. "Papa, can she stay for breakfast too?" "Clara," Samuel warned. But the child had already crossed the invisible line that adults so carefully guarded. She tugged at Eliza's hand, pulling her toward the house with innocent insistence. "You can sit by me. Mama used to sit there. You can sit in her chair." Samuel froze. The words cut him deeper than he let show. Clara seldom spoke of her mother, and never with strangers. But now, the name had slipped from her lips as if the stranger belonged here, as if the empty space at the table had been waiting all this time. Eliza's eyes widened, tears welling unbidden. She shook her head, overwhelmed. "Child, I'm no mamma to you." But Clara only hugged her leg, small arms clinging tight. "You feel like one," she whispered. Samuel's breath caught in his chest. For the first time in years, he felt his walls shake, not from hunger nor from need, but from the fragile hope in his daughter's voice. He looked at the woman, this ragged stranger who had come begging for scraps, and for a heartbeat he did not see danger. He saw the way Clara's little body pressed close to her, as if she had finally found the peace she'd been missing. Eliza glanced at him then, shame and yearning battling in her eyes. She opened her mouth to protest, but the words would not come. The sun slipped fully behind the horizon, leaving the land in soft twilight. Somewhere in the distance, a coyote called, and Samuel Carver stood between caution and compassion, uncertain which would break him first. A place to belong. The night air was cold in the barn, but Eliza didn't complain. She had been given a quilt, a bowl of stew, and more kindness than she had expected from a stranger. She lay on the hay listening to the muffled laughter of Clara upstairs in the ranch house, the child's voice like a bell in the quiet. For the first time in many nights, Eliza closed her eyes without fear of being chased away or waking to hunger gnawing her belly. Yet her heart was unsettled. Clara's words clung to her mind like burrs on fabric. Mama. The name had pierced deeper than hunger ever could. Eliza had no children of her own, though once she had dreamed of such things. Life had stripped her bare of dreams, leaving only the road, the ache of loss, and the shame of needing scraps to survive. By dawn, she told herself she would leave. That was the deal, and she would not overstay her welcome. But dawn came differently. When Samuel entered the barn that morning, he expected to find a stranger eager to move along. Instead, he found Eliza already awake, gently brushing down one of the horses. The animal nuzzled against her, calm under her hand. "You've got away with them," Samuel said gruffly, surprising even himself. Eliza startled, then offered a small, almost embarrassed smile. "My pa had a mule. Stubborn thing, but he listened if you were patient enough." Samuel studied her for a moment. "Breakfast is ready. Clara insisted you come inside." Eliza hesitated, torn between gratitude and fear. But Samuel's steady gaze left no room for refusal. Inside, the house smelled of biscuits and bacon. Clara sat at the table, her feet swinging above the floor, a chair beside her already pulled out. "Sit here," she beamed. "I saved you a place." Eliza's throat tightened. She lowered herself into the chair, her hands trembling slightly as Clara pressed a biscuit into them. For a moment, it was as though she belonged, as though she had not wandered here from dust and desperation. The days that followed unfolded in ways none of them expected. Eliza did not leave at sunrise, nor the next. Each morning she rose early, helping in the kitchen, tending the animals, mending torn clothes. She worked quietly, never asking for anything, as if afraid that to speak of staying would break the fragile spell holding her there. Clara clung to her with the fierce devotion of a child who had known too much absence. She brought Eliza flowers from the field, asked for stories at night, slipped her small hand into Eliza's whenever they walked the pasture. To Clara, it was as though the emptiness her mother left behind had been filled overnight. Samuel, however, wrestled with unease. He watched Eliza closely, his trust earned only in fractions. He could not deny her usefulness, nor the way Clara's laughter grew brighter in her presence. Yet he feared what it meant, inviting a stranger into their lives, opening doors he had sealed long ago. One evening, as the sun bled red across the horizon, townsfolk stopped by the ranch. Men from the store and the feed mill, their curiosity sharpened into gossip. "Carver," one of them drawled, nodding toward Eliza, who was carrying water to the trough. "Heard you took in a drifter. Folks say she was begging scraps in town just last week." Samuel's jaw hardened. "She pulls her weight here," he said flatly. The men exchanged looks, smirks curling at their mouths. "Careful who you let near your little girl. Not everyone's past is clean." Eliza overheard. Her face burned with shame. That night, she packed her satchel quietly, intending to slip away before dawn. But Clara woke early and found her. "Where are you going?" the girl whispered, eyes wide with panic. Eliza knelt, trying to steady her voice. "Sweetheart, I don't belong here. Your papa's right to keep you safe." Clara clutched her hands. "You do belong. Don't you see? I prayed for a mama, and God sent you." Tears blurred Eliza's vision. She had no answer for such innocent faith. Before she could speak again, Samuel's voice cut through the barn. "Leaving, are you?" Eliza rose, ashamed. "I never meant to overstay, Mr. Carver. Folks talk. I don't want to bring trouble to your door." Samuel's expression was unreadable, shadowed by the lantern light. He stepped closer, his voice steady. "You think I give a damn what they say? This ranch runs on work, not gossip. And you've worked harder in 2 weeks than most hired hands do in 2 months." Eliza blinked, stunned. "But more than that," he continued, his voice softening, "my girl hasn't laughed this much since her mama passed. She calls you that name because she feels it here." He touched his chest, over his heart. Eliza's breath caught. "And you? What do you feel?" For a long moment, silence hung between them, heavy and fragile. Then Samuel's rough hand reached for hers, hesitant but firm. "I feel like maybe God answered more than one prayer." Clara squealed with joy, throwing her little arms around them both. "See, we're a family now." Eliza wept openly then, no longer ashamed. She was no longer the woman who begged for scraps and a corner to sleep. She was something new, wanted, needed, loved. And on that ranch, beneath the endless sky, she finally found a place to belong.